Good evening, everyone. Welcome to All Access Belize, December's edition. And we welcome you and we thank you for joining us this evening. My name is David Kafka. I'm your host this evening. And what we're talking about is anything and everything Belize. I love educating. I love talking to people about Belize. And I figured this is the best way to do it, since there's so much stuff out there that's wrong or misleading or things like that. So our guest tonight, she's having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll be ready to answer questions whenever you have, while we're waiting on her to join. Just put your questions in the question and answer box. Linda Hayes to all panelists. So she's on, but she's on as an attendee. So Linda, if you want to check your spam, you should have something from Rebecca, and you should join as a panelist, not as an attendee. So we'll wait a second. So I apologize for that this evening. So it looks like she hopped off. I see 4 people now. So anyway, so again, David Kafka here. I'm coming to you from Placencia. Just got in about an hour ago, and already, trying to get, settled and get everything ready for everybody and be able to answer all your questions. So put your questions in the question and answer box, not the chat box. That way I can just, just focus on the question box. I heard a rumor, and I know I don't like talking about rumors, but I heard a rumor that the CDC has changed the animals coming to Belize or going back to the US from Belize. So I don't know if you remember or not, a month or 2 ago, we had Melanie with Pets on a Jet on. And I reached out to her to see if she heard anything, but hadn't heard back yet. But I'm hearing that the CDC is now allowing pets to come in to the country. There was 100 countries, if you remember, that pets were not allowed to come or go back into the US. Sorry. So it seems like for Belize, at least, the pets are allowed to go back to the US as long as they have been vaccinated and chipped by a US veterinarian. So you still have to do the regular stuff, like your health certificate coming in. You have to have a health certificate going back in the US. And also you have to have, a proof that they have shots and all that, and your Belize health certificate. So that seems to be good news. I've not really confirmed that yet, but I was showing a property the other day, and they had 2 pets that they had just brought in. And I asked them, how are you going to get them back to the US? And that's when they kind of filled me in on everything. So I've not seen it on the CDC website or anything like that, but we'll see what happens. I'm still looking into it, and hopefully in January's edition of All Access Belize, or at the least, we'll put it in the newsletter. Hopefully you all get our newsletter. We have 2. We have one for Remax and we have one for Caribbean Capital Group. So if you're just joining us for the first time, again, like I mentioned earlier, my name is David Kafka. I am originally from Charleston, South Carolina. I've been living in Belize. February will be 12 years. And I am a citizen of Belize now. So I hold dual citizenship. And I have the Remax franchise, Remax First Choice Belize. We have offices in Placencia and Hopkins. And we also are going to open Corzall office probably the end of this, well, it's already the end of this year, probably, Q1 of 2022. So stay tuned for that. Also, I'm a private fund manager for Caribbean Capital Group. So we find investments for passive investors for if you are interested in passively investing. And I have several other companies like Melissa's Art and Soul I have with my fiance. And if you are interested in anything Belize, I've pretty much done it. Or if I don't know it, I can get answers to you once I find out the answers. On the line with us is Rebecca. She's my right-hand woman. She helps me, and she's going to be helping us tonight. And she's coming to you from the US. And I don't see any questions, so I will just start to, let's see, what else can we talk about? COVID restrictions. We can definitely update you on that. We are now having curfew at roughly around 10 o'clock, I believe. No, 11 o'clock now, if I'm not mistaken. 11 o'clock, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. And Friday and Saturday is 12 o'clock. And then I think Sunday's back to the 11 o'clock. And also, I think the US has instituted, as of this week, you have to have a COVID test, negative COVID test, to get back in the US within 24 hours. And that's not an issue here. Most of the resorts, if not, majority of the resorts have somebody on staff. The bigger resorts like Mahogany Bay, Alaya, most of those resorts, Grand Caribe, have them on staff, have a nurse on staff. And then we also have Caring Hands, which is by Maya Airport, throughout the whole country. The Maya in Placencia has it. There's actually 2 places by the airport now that have it, and they can get you results within 15 minutes. So most people are getting it pretty fast. Yeah, so Linda is still not on. Rebecca, she still has. I see it on the chat box. She's still on as a host. So she's not getting the panelist link.
All right, I'm double checking her settings there, David.
Okay. So Cheryl, thank you. It's nice to meet you. Finally, will you be at the Real Estate Guys Radio Show Investor Summit in Belize on June 22nd? I sure will. I do not think I could have a good enough excuse since it's in our backyard. So I'll definitely be there. We just finished up a Real Estate Guys Radio Show Belize Discovery trip. And that was, we had probably like 14, 13 people, but 2 got COVID and 1 had to cancel. And so it was a very nice group at about 9 people. And it's maybe a couple more would have been good, but 9 was really good as well, really intimate. We get to know each other really well and show you around. So if you're interested in doing the Belize Discovery trip with the Real Estate Guys Radio Show, go to the Real Estate Guys radioshow.com, and Rebecca will put that in the chat box, and then go to events. Since we just finished one, I don't think the new one is out yet, and we just set the date, and honestly, I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. So let me just see, you may be able to add her as a co-host. Let me, yeah, Linda, I'm not sure. I don't see you. I don't see who's in attendance. So I can see your text, I just can't, or your chat, I just can't, I can't add you as a co-host from there. So anyways, so back to Cheryl. Let me go to the question and answer box. And yes, so I'll be there. Will you be coming, Cheryl? I think we'll definitely sell out this year. We're already over 200, I think. So there's probably, or close to 200, maybe 180. And there is, I think, 253 spots available. So our conference room at Mahogany Bay is, only allows us so big. So that's what the limiting factor is. I will be at Goals this year. So if you're going to be at Goals, definitely look me up. I'm really excited. This will be the biggest Goals event that the real estate guys are going to have. And I think over half of them, or close to, no, over half, Robert told me today, is already new people that have just signed up for the first time. This is their first event. So for those of you that do not know, the Real Estate Guys radio show is one of the largest real estate podcasts that I listen to. They started in 1997, and the host and co-host, Robert Helms and Russell Gray, are my mentors, and they are teaching me, and they've been teaching me. And with another group, we have Inner Circle and the Syndication Mentoring Club, and those are a lot of the classes I go to for continuing education to help learn how to be good stewards of people's money when you are passively investing with us. Eventually, I'll venture out of the US and do some syndications outside of the US. A syndication is just like a group investment. Pretty much any major motion picture, any high-rise building, apartment buildings, they're all group investments. So where people pool their money together, and it's headed by a general partner, and then all the investors are limited partners. So they're just passively the jockey, if you will, or the general practitioner, the general, the GP is what we call them. They are the ones that's taking the reins, and they're fulfilling and making it work. So that's just kind of a very brief description of the syndication. Still no questions, so I will just continue to talk about something else. Let's see, we talked about COVID. We talked about the 24 hours going back into the US, so don't worry about it. I know Canada, I think, has just enacted a PCR test to get into Canada, then a PCR test once you're in Canada, and then you have to quarantine in your house until you get your results back. I just found that out by some Canadians this week. And so that's kind of a new thing as well. The airfare, we are probably next month, we are going to be 120% airfare, airlift into Belize than what we were before COVID. So we have all of our flights pretty much coming back, except for, of course, they announced London Heathrow with British Airways, but that didn't start because of COVID. And we also announced, and I think WestJet's coming, but Air Canada hasn't started back yet. But we have Frontier, we have Alaska Airlines, or the new airlines coming. There she is. And so it's nice to see everything busy again. People are here, people are enjoying themselves. Everybody still tells me they feel safe here. And it's just, everything's so spread out. So come on down. I invite you to come down and check us out. Look me up when you come. We can have an adult beverage. Just let me know, heads up, where you're coming, so I know where to be. As you know, or may not know, if you're new to the All Access Belize, I travel between Placencia and San Pedro. So I'll be in Placencia for about 7 to 10 days, and then I'll be back in San Pedro for the holidays, and then probably be back here before I go to Goals in Las Vegas. So Linda, you're with us?
I am here.
All right. So again, enough about me. I want to introduce you to Linda Hayes. She came on our Belize field trip. Linda, when was it?
It was in January of this year, so almost a year already.
Almost a year. And she decided not to go back to Canada. So she is a Canadian citizen. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her on, and I'll let her tell you her story, but she's amazing. She has a YouTube channel. She has tiny homes in Canada. She has tiny homes in Belize, and she knows Canadian taxes. So we've had a CPA from the US on at All Access Belize before, but we've never been able to get a Canadian CPA or a Canadian accountant. I'm still looking for one. And once I find one, we'll definitely have them on to get more in depth. But Linda, can definitely help us answer any questions if we have any Canadians on. If not, and there's no questions, then I'll just interview her and talk to her about some stuff. So Linda, we'll leave it to you. You can tell us about yourself, where you're from, where you're at right now, what you're up to, and tell us a little bit about your story.
Wonderful. Yeah. My video, I don't have a button to turn it on, so that's unfortunate, but maybe that'll come on suddenly and you'll get to see me. But I'm very excited to be here. I've been in Belize since December 27th of 2020. And what happened with me is I decided to invest in Belize because of the Real Estate Guys radio podcast. And actually, it was through my friend Shanna in Edmonton, Alberta, because I'm from Edmonton. And my friends Shanna and Ash are part of a lot of real estate investing groups in Edmonton. And they had been on the Real Estate Guys Summit that you were just talking about, that's in Mahogany Bay again this year, 6 times. And yet I didn't even ever know she had been on it until I said, I'm thinking of investing internationally. So she said, you need to start listening to these podcasts. Started doing that, found out about Belize. It was very easy to get to Belize from Alberta. So I decided I should buy property. And then I just decided to search. I'm a very, very detail-oriented person, being a CPA. So then, unfortunately, I'm going to say I decided to look on Google for who I should talk to about coming to Belize. That is something I will tell everyone not to do. Do not trust anything you find on Google about Belize, unless it's from David. And there's a few other people I would trust. But think about used car salespeople in Canada or the US, and imagine that in Belize. I have a realtor friend that just left yesterday from Canada, and he said, I see what you're talking about. The realtors in Belize tend to be used car salespeople, with exceptions. I only refer people to a couple of realtors, David being one of them, because of that. But anyway, I've been here so long now, and what happened is I was going to come back to Canada. I was only coming 3 weeks, and then I realized that the Real Estate Guys Discovery Tour was going to happen the week after I was scheduled to go back to Canada. So I couldn't leave. I thought I got to stay, and that's where I realized I should have done that before buying here, and I would have got to meet David sooner than I did, but obviously we met at that event. And then I realized I really didn't, well, first of all, Canada shut down. They needed PCR tests. We couldn't get those initially here in Belize. We can now, and actually, funny enough, I'll just talk about that for a second. I had a friend from Canada that left 2 weeks ago. He got his PCR test results here in San Pedro in 1 hour. In Canada, you cannot get them that quickly. So I have a video on all of that, on how to get back to Canada, on my YouTube channel now. I've had lots, and then I had another friend just leave yesterday. So anyway, so that's the PCR test. And then there was the hotel quarantine. So I kept just staying here because I was working remote. I'm an accountant, as I said, and I realized that building a house here, I shouldn't be not here, because the resources that were here where I was building were definitely not what I thought they would be, and I wanted to be on site, and that was quite important. And then I was going to go home after being vaccinated, which I got done in San Pedro. But then I actually decided to stay because I still had warranty issues on my property that took actually just till last week to hopefully finally be fixed. And I'm actually scheduled to go back home to Canada for the first time, January 22nd, because my warranty on my house is done, and I have long-term tenants scheduled to be in my property for 6 months because I finally found a good property manager that found tenants within 2 weeks. So that's the good news story, is you can find good people here, but it takes a lot of time and it's very difficult to do. And one thing I learned from Robert Helms, who is David's mentor as well, in the Belize Discovery Tour was people are good here until they're not. And I can definitely say that's a very true statement. So being here has been really, really nice because I've got to meet so many great people. I love it. It is fantastic weather. I have a huge friend group. We go to Thanksgiving dinner. We have 18 people. It's just great. There's activities you can do every single day. I have tomorrow night a solo women in San Pedro meetup group that I set up because there's a solo women in Belize Facebook group. And I was like, people kept reaching out saying, hey, I'm coming to San Pedro. Is there any other single women? And there's tons. So then I was like, why don't we set up events? So we have monthly events for that. Some of my male friends are like, you guys are sexist. But anyway, it's fun. There's lots of people here. The crowd has changed a lot here too. When I first got here, my youngest friend was 58. I'm in my 40s. And the rest of my friends were in their 70s. Now I have lots of friends in their 30s and 40s that have only moved to San Pedro this year. Lots of nomad workers, people buying restaurants, all kinds of things. So it's a really, really great place. And I was living in my tiny home that you said about my tiny homes. They're obviously close to where David works, but they are not a place I wanted to live because I was the only person pretty much living in the whole community. It's more suitable for tourists, and now I'm living in a condo building where I have my next door neighbor works remotely, and she's a good friend of mine. The upstairs neighbor I know now too, because one thing about here, there's 25,000 people or so, but you can pretty much meet almost everybody if you're a social person, which I am. So it's a great place to be from that perspective.
Wow, that's awesome. And what we're going to do is Rebecca will put your YouTube channel and everything in the chat box for everybody. And so tell us, so you are a CPA? I knew you were an accountant, but I wasn't sure if you were a CPA.
I am, yeah. I'm a chartered accountant, a CPA. I just don't practice as an accountant doing people's taxes just because that, while I used to actually do that, but for even doing that part-time, you have to, in Canada, pay $1,100 for insurance to give people tax advice and things like that. So I prefer not to do that. I don't have enough time to do it regularly anyway, because with my real estate investing, I love teaching, I love mentoring, I do consulting, and then have usually a full-time job. So obviously doing people's taxes isn't my thing. So what I instead do is I help people a lot. People setting up short-term rentals will call me. I'll spend an hour with them. I help them do pricing software or automation. I help them with, here's a budget spreadsheet you can use to buy real estate, or here's how you can track your expenses and everything like that. So I do that kind of stuff because I enjoy teaching a lot more than I enjoy doing taxes. So yes, I can definitely answer questions, but I will always say it with, I'm not legally allowed to give tax advice to people, but I can give information, certainly.
For sure. Very good. So can we ask some questions on taxes if you're a Canadian?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if I don't know, I'm not ever afraid to say I don't know. So no problem at all. And if I don't know, I can probably find out the answer. But because I do my Canadian taxes and I have property here where I'll do the taxes, obviously I know how that works.
Right. Very good. So, as you may be familiar, as a U.S. citizen, you have to pay taxes on worldwide income. So is Canada the same way?
It absolutely is. So Belize is not. Belize, and I'm sure you know this, is territorial tax. So that's one of the reasons I like this as an investment place, and that's why I'm able to work remote here too, which is critical for anyone that's in Canada or the US that wants to, say, work here. So because I'm working in Belize, I still have to pay tax in Canada, and my employer's in Canada, so that's fine. For my real estate investments, the investments I have in Canada, I pay tax only in Canada. In Belize, because it's territorial, I only have to pay tax on the income I earn in Belize. So my rental property here, I'll pay tax on in Belize, which that's 1.75 of your gross income. But then in Canada, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rental income from Belize, put it on the same rentals form that I have for all my properties in Canada, but then I'm going to be able to claim all my expenses because we're allowed to do that in Canada. Of course, I have to convert it into Canadian dollars, and then I'll get what's called a foreign tax credit because I've already paid tax in Belize, and then I'm also going to have to pay it in Canada. So I believe that's similar to how it works in the U.S.
Yeah.
One difference in the U.S. that I want to talk about, because I have a ton of American friends here, one being a lawyer that works in the U.S., and they talk a lot about the exemption. If you don't live in the U.S. and you work from, for clients in the U.S. or whatever, you have this exemption of just over $100,000 where you don't pay tax. We do not have that exception in Canada, so which is too bad because otherwise I would be really happy. But unfortunately, I still have to pay tax just like I do when I live in Canada.
Right. Okay. Very good. So, so you are allowed to do deductions, because in Belize it's a flat tax. So those of you that are familiar with Belize, the Belize tax system is very simple. It's a one-page form, and it's anywhere between, I think, 0.75% is the least tax you pay, and that's usually TV and radio. And then the most expensive would be 15%, which would be like real estate agents for commissions and things like that. So Tom Wheelwright says that if you want to know what to invest in, read what the country wants you to invest in, read the tax code. And if you look at the US, what the US wants you to do is provide housing and things like that. Well, Belize is no different. They want you to provide housing, they want you to create jobs and things like that. So your tax for, short-term rentals, for our art shop, things like that is 1.75%, but it is a flat tax. So there's no deductions. So whether you are making money or not making money, you have to pay that 1.75% on the gross. Whereas what we do in the States, we can do the deductions and all that. So I do get, tax credit for paying taxes here. I do get to use my deductions. And since I live in Belize, I do, like what Linda says, get the foreign earned income credit. So it's, they make it simple. You still have to file, which is kind of a pain, but, it is pretty, cut and dry. But Belize, because Belize is such a small country, they can't wait to do taxes on a yearly basis. So we pay our taxes in Belize monthly. And again, it's super easy. You can pay it at any bank, or you can pay it online, and or you can take it into the tax office. So so Linda, so you can use the deductions, you said.
Yep.
Now, what about if you are does it matter if you're a real estate professional? Do you get any special credits or anything in Canada?
No, I mean, I was at your session when the U.S. accountant was talking, so I heard all that stuff, and I thought, oh, that's very interesting. So in Canada, when you own real estate under your own name, there is a simple form on your tax return. It's called the T776. You go into that for each property, you fill in the rental income, the address, all the expenses, and it doesn't matter how many properties you have. You just put them all in there. Doesn't matter what your primary job is. And then what also happens with that is that you can claim capital cost allowance, which is depreciation. And I know you have something similar to that in the US. And CRA allows us specific rates on all of our assets. So if I have a rental property, obviously the building is one thing, but then there's other things like your appliances, which we get a bigger write-off for. That's where it's important to have an accountant, because if you bought a property and you paid $400,000 for it, and you tried to put that on your tax return to claim depreciation, you can't claim the land, but you can claim on the building, but it's only like 4% per year. So it's a very small deduction. But then for appliances, it's 20%. So if you can break out your appliances, your building, your landscaping is actually fully deductible. So that's another good thing in Canada. We get 100% write-off of landscaping. So it's a lot of times in my first year, if I paid, on a property $7,000 for landscaping, I can write that off fully, which a lot of times when I buy a property, I might not pay any tax on it at all, which which is similar to how taxes work in the US. Generally, you shouldn't really have to pay tax on your investment properties. Down the road, when you have a lot of them and you already claim a lot of your depreciation, then you get to the stage in Canada where suddenly you unfortunately have to pay tax. So you can get there. And for me, I have about 6 properties with, and usually they all have 2 properties on each lot, including my one in Belize that obviously I haven't done any tax for yet because I literally just started to, I just got it this year. So yeah, I'll have to figure that out at year end. And I have an accountant in Belize because it's kind of odd, but because she's doing all my paperwork for my BTB license and my permanent residence and everything else. And she happens to be an accountant, so that's kind of handy.
Wow, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your properties in Canada, and then tell us a little bit about your properties in Belize and kind of the similarities. But before we do, and some of the differences, but before we do, please, anybody, if you have any questions for Linda or myself, throw them in the question and answer box. If not, we're just happy to, chat and talk and kind of catch up. And but again, Linda Hayes is with us. She's a CPA. She's an accountant. She's an educator. She has a YouTube channel, which is in the chat box. And then we'll also, get her contact information, her email address. So if you want to reach out to her, want to stay at one of her tiny homes in Belize, they're super cute. As soon as she has some time or some vacancy, I want to get in there and take some pictures and throw up a video because they are very adorable. Very good use of space. Has a small swimming pool on it on the deck. But I don't want to spoil it. But Linda, tell us a little bit about it. Tell us a little about the differences, and then we'll talk about management. I have some thoughts on management, but before we get into management, tell us about the properties.
Sure. So in Edmonton, Alberta, we have really, really good bylaws and zoning, so we can put a house as well as a garden suite, we call it, or a tiny home on one lot. And sometimes we can have a house with a basement suite and a garden suite or tiny home as well. So all of my properties that I started investing in, because our property prices are expensive, to be able to cash flow a property, I started building one house where I put a long-term tenant in it, sometimes with a basement suite as well. And then I put a garden suite in the backyard, which is sometimes above a detached garage. In the US, they call them ADUs typically. And then in my newest property in Edmonton, we changed the bylaws in 2019 where we were allowed to do tiny homes. So my brand new property has a tiny home that I just got possession of in March, and I'm not there. Obviously, I've been in Belize the whole time. So I've never actually been in my tiny home in Edmonton since it's been completed. So I got it totally decorated and furnished with other people. I had bought all the furniture in advance because I usually plan quite a bit to get everything set up, because I set up a ton of Airbnb properties on all my garden suites. So the long-term tenants are in the house, then there is tenants in the garden suites or the tiny homes temporarily, either through Airbnb, or a lot of times I get people through my direct website, someone coming in as a contractor for 3 months, someone coming in between buying a house, moving into Edmonton, or a lot of tourists that want to come visit West Edmonton Mall because it's North America's largest shopping mall, and my properties are all close to that in Edmonton. So that's why Airbnb is good there. And in Belize, obviously San Pedro is the top tourist destination in Belize, and it's growing a lot. And so I decided I wanted to do the same thing. And I wanted tiny homes because I wanted to put more than one property on a lot. And I also wanted, also the cost of construction here was a lot more than what I had thought it would be from what I was told initially when I was buying compared to what it was. So I was originally going to do a similar thing to what I do in Edmonton, where I'd put a 2-bedroom main house and then a tiny home with it. But then when I got the construction cost actual numbers, I was like, no, I can't afford to do that. So instead I built 2 tiny homes, and they're very similar to what I have in Edmonton. One is really small. It's 225 square feet. I had guests checking out of both of the units today, actually. And then the other one is 384 square feet plus a loft. And I had I have a guy I'm seeing that's from Edmonton, who's a general contractor. And he came here in October. He's coming back on the 22nd, and he stayed with me in the larger of the tiny homes. And he goes, okay, my whole life has changed now. he's already selling his house in Edmonton. He's like, I could live in a tiny home. Like, this is amazing. It's fantastic. I can't believe how good this is. So as long as you put storage, which I have lots of storage in that house, you can actually live there really, really comfortably. And another little interesting tidbit is when John and I went to the mainland to visit his caretaker, because he coincidentally owns land in Belize as well, we met the mayor of Belmopan and her brother. And he actually came to San Pedro to see my tiny homes when he was here for the Belize Investment Summit. And he actually stayed in my tiny home as well. And he has now said he is a convert for tiny homes as well. So that's kind of just a cool thing.
Wow, that's awesome. And you have some neat things on your, kind of, to me, cutting edge when it comes to, on your homes in Belize that I'm not used to, like your locks and things like that. Talk about your locks.
Okay, and I know I just saw Rebecca put my West Edmonton rentals website into the chat, which is you'll see all my garden suites and my tiny homes on there. And then what I'm going to do now as well, and it also has another house with a basement suite, but I'm going to put my I'm going to put my tiny home one, because this is actually just new and it just became operational. So let's see if that works. So my website is mbbtinyhomes.com. So I have a sign outside the property now, and so you can check out the tiny homes there. So there's lots of pictures there. So what do I have there? So basically what I did is I planned actually to put 3 tiny homes on the site, which you can fit on a standard size lot, and you are allowed to do that in Belize. So that's really good, because in Edmonton, we can't do that. We're very progressive, but not that progressive. So you're only allowed 2 buildings, whereas here you could do 3 as long as you have your side and rear setbacks correct. So then but I didn't have enough money to build 3, so I built 2 to start. And then I have a combined deck with a plunge pool. And you can check out the reviews on Airbnb as well, because people love them so far.
Yeah, very good. They're definitely cute. So, one of the things when you're looking at property in Belize, you always want to ask several questions, like who's going to be responsible for putting the head on the bed? If you're talking short term. Long term, pretty much any property manager can do a long term, rental. But short term is a little bit harder, a little bit more work. A lot more work. You have to market it. You have to get that head in the bed to fill it up. And if, I know you had some issues with that, right? Not being able to find a property manager. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I bought the property, I was told that I should buy there specifically because there was, great property management. And when I got there, I realized the property management was virtually non-existent, and places that had been rented through them were not doing well. Now, it was COVID, so I would have researched that had I been able to, but because of COVID, you really couldn't. There was one property in the community that was rented by a different manager that was doing a lot better. So it is all about the type of management you can get. That person was doing well, and as Robert has said, people are good till they're not. That person has actually fell off the map and is now terrible as well. So the guy that had that house that was doing well has now sold it coincidentally, and that person taken money from people in the community that have built and then disappeared. So there's been huge issues with that as well. And that was a person I met that I thought actually would do really, really well. So it's interesting how you meet people here, because obviously I found out through you, David, that obviously things were a bit different than I thought they were from what I had heard from other people. And now there's a bunch of us actually meeting with or talking to a lawyer. They're reviewing the HOA agreements here. I didn't start this process. Somebody else in the community started it, because we just found out there's an HOA in the community that was started in 2017. None of us that purchased had that agreement. Didn't know what it was. It doesn't even seem to include roads, and the fees are a lot more than they told us it was. So there's like a whole bunch of issues that we didn't know about. And because it was a new community, we didn't even think the HOA was set up yet, right? So property management, we've been told we can do it on our own, but then the problem with that is that you it takes a really, really long time. So I'm pretty good at Airbnb. I have pricing software, I have automation, I work with Shanna, my friend that's been on the Real Estate Guys Summit a lot of times, and we use in my group all the same kinds of software. So I am able to get people in, and I'm able to do automation. But the problem is that actually get it set up properly. So now I'm a panelist. So it just happened all of a sudden. So now I can start my video, and you can actually see me.
There you go. There you go.
You probably recognize the background, David.
Yes, I do. That's the Mahogany Bay Resort and Beach Club private beach. So that is good. That is pretty. It's lovely out there. Yeah, so when you're buying a property in Belize, there's really no disclosure laws for real estate agents. So you always want to make sure you work with somebody that's going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, not just what you want to hear. Somebody that's going to educate you, take the time to educate you. And you always want to, what my mentors say, trust, but verify. So don't just take what I tell you, but verify it. That way you don't run into issues kind of like what Linda's running into. So again, it's important to really look at which head is going to be in your bed, who's going to put it there. Also, are they going to pay you in US dollars or Belize dollars? And how much work are you going to have to do as the owner? I know some clients don't want to do any work. They want just a property manager to do everything. And then there's some clients I know that they really have that knack of marketing, kind of like how Linda does. And they are really, killing it. They're just crushing it. So let's see, what other things can we talk about?
And I can talk a little bit about what the new property manager I do does.
Okay, very good.
That might be. So, and actually, I just met with Robert on Monday, and he was asking who the property manager was too. So it's just kind of interesting.
Oh,
but
yes.
Yeah. So basically, when I finally found someone that I thought was good, and the way I find people here is I make sure that people that are salespeople that I know, like David, if you told me you trusted someone, I would automatically trust them. And so another realtor that I really like is the president of the Rotary Club here. So you and her are the only people I really like. And she told me, here's one of the best property managers that I find, which is Crown Property Management, which is Colleen Merritt. So that's who I'm using now, if you didn't know that already. And so she has different plans you can get. So she has sort of a plan where she does everything like a normal property manager would, or she can just do certain things for you. So she has different types of plans for that with different fees associated with them. So that's one thing that's promising. That wasn't my big thing. My big thing was, okay, right now, because I'm in the process of getting my hotel license and all that, hopefully, which could take up to a year, we don't know, I might as well put long-term tenants in it. So when I talked to Colleen, she said, well, I have lots of people looking for long-term rentals. So I said, okay, well, I'm willing to use you if you find someone for it. And within 2 days, she had people scheduled and a lease for January to July for $2,500 US a month, plus utilities. So if you think of my investment, I'll tell everyone kind of what the price was. So I paid all together with my land, buildings, pool, seawall, everything, about $300,000. I financed the land, so I only paid 20% down. And so getting $2,500 US per month rent is very, very good.
Yes, very good. Let's see, I had something else I was going to think of. So fees, let's talk about fees. I know, I'm in the process of starting a property management company myself for the same issues. We're going to start probably in Placencia, then probably Hopkins and San Pedro eventually get there. So I know some of the fees. We've always done long-term rentals, and we do about 10% on long-term rentals, and we take care of paying the bills, collecting the rent, making sure everything's done. Short-term rentals are a bit different. It's a lot more work. If you're in a resort, you're going to pay anywhere between 20 to 50% of the income will go to the property manager. And you always want to find out what's included. Sometimes water's included, sometimes cable's included, internet, things like that. That's kind of on a a resort of some sort. But on a single family house, a tiny home, things like that, Linda, do you want to talk about, some of the fees? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so Colleen had a plan where you would pay, I think for short term, she had it around 30%, something like that for short term rentals. I'd have to verify the percentage, but it was something like that. So it was within the regular realm, 25. Normally what I see for short term is 25 to 35 for the private homes.
Right.
With anyone I've talked to. And then what she does for your services for cleaning or my pool or anything like that, if she's hiring the people, she upcharges that by, I think it's 15%. So typically, because she's having to, I mean, if I have my own people though, she doesn't charge me that because I already have a pool guy, I already have a landscape guy, so I can keep paying them or she can pay them and she's not going to charge me for that. But if she hires those people, that there's a lot of work hiring people here, way more than what we have to do in Canada or the US. So certainly it makes sense for her to charge on that piece as well.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, so that kind of shows you some of the, let's talk about maybe some of the issues in building. I don't want to be negative in any way, but there are, I hear stories of people paying 100% cash to their builder up front, which I totally do not recommend. I still goof up. I mean, I had a client building a fourplex and the contract was very vague. And, now we're having a couple issues. We'll work it out. I mean, easily, because the builder's a friend of mine, the client's a friend of mine. So we'll definitely work it out. But, contracts are vague, things like that. What are some of the issues you ran into when you were building? Do you recommend, I know some people, they build while they're here. I know some people that never come while they're building, but they have maybe a project manager, things like that. So kind of just talk about just some of the issues you see or you hear about or you experienced when building your property.
Okay, so I guess the first thing is that you'll hear on videos that there's a team that will organize everything for your build and you don't have to do anything. So there is a project manager, which is true. So I have a project management agreement. I have contracts with the builder, and I actually really like my builder. My builder, I have no issues with at all. What I didn't realize, and this is a problem for a lot of us that are Canadians in particular, because I have friends from Canada that are, or even from America, we didn't realize the project manager was the realtor's girlfriend, for example, which to me is a huge conflict of interest because anytime I say anything to her, it goes back to them. And that was a huge issue. And then she was supposed to be reviewing stuff because that's what a project manager does. But yet I had plans that had a dishwasher in pictures from a property in the US that the architect had designed. The builder didn't end up building the room big enough for that washer dryer. The cabinets were built where the dishwasher didn't fit. They had to redo my whole floor. There was tons and tons of rework done. And to me, it's not necessarily the builder, it's the project manager that should be there checking measurements. And she sent me a diagram saying, hey, it's 25 and a half inches. I said, well, the floor plans say 27. Now you can't fix that. So then I had to order custom washer and dryers. It took a long time to get in and it was way more expensive. The cabinets couldn't be fixed. They picked the appliances. It's not like I picked them. They did it, and they didn't build the cabinets the right size. So I said, fine, order an apartment size one. So there was lots of issues like that. There was also a lot of delays. I had water coming in my doors in June when I tried to stay in the property during the summit. So luckily I ended up staying in the hotel instead because there was water pouring in. And when I got possession at the end of July, water was still pouring in the houses. They had never fixed it, and they didn't know how to fix it. They tried many, many things. They, I think, finally fixed it last week, and the new guy came from the builder and said, hey, we just fixed Matt and Becky's house this way, which are my friends that were the second people that moved in. So Matt and Becky, they've had problems where they put the wrong color doors in, their window wouldn't open with the faucet they put in, and they've been living here, I think, 3 months because their house was supposed to be done and it wasn't finished, which delays are, I guess, are common in construction, and I always expect there to be delays. In Edmonton, the builder will never tell you when something will be done. One problem here is they do tell you when it's going to be done, and the project manager says your house will be done here, and then they keep giving you updated dates, but they're wrong, and then they push the builder a lot, and I think that's part of the reason things don't get done well. So I said at one point to the project manager, just, no, I don't care if it's done next week, just get it done right. Oh, I don't want to tell them that because then they just won't get it done. And they have so many houses under construction that I think the builder, is like the 2 builders they're using are really, really good. However, with that many houses under construction, they're hiring a lot of people, which I think might be part of the issue, right? If you get a whole bunch of new people, I had a guy put my washer and dryer in on top of each other without a stacking kit and not using proper electrical duct tape for the dryer. And I said, who was this? And nobody even knew who put it in. And it turned out it was an intern that put it in. So I found that, that's why I wanted to be there, because these things, when I asked my project manager, I said, the washer dryer was put in completely wrong. Oh, no, it's fine. It was working. And I thought, you're an engineer. How did you not know? So I ended up pulling up the manual, highlighting it to show them how a washer and dryer should be installed. Now, that's not something you should have to do. And that's sometimes you have to do here. So I have a friend here who's a project manager now that I met, who's a project manager for some of the resorts that are going here. And I asked him, could people hire you if we want to? And he said, absolutely. So that's something I would recommend to people, is maybe don't use who the realtors tell you to use, because there can be conflicts of interest, and ask the question right away. I mean, even if you're working with David, David will tell you his wife owns the art gallery. Well, I bought all my art from David's wife's art gallery because I love it. But I mean, if he didn't tell me it was hers and he told me to go there, that to me is a conflict, which I know you would never do that. But if you disclose relationships to people, that's very important in my mind. And as soon as people don't do that, that really kind of makes me think the process is a little bit failed.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely, you want to ask questions. You want to keep an eye on the builder, whoever you use. And especially supply chain issues right now with everything going on in, the US, and, ships just sitting out, out there waiting to come in. So I can definitely imagine, some of the issues. So very good. We have about 5 minutes left. So, yep, go ahead.
If there's any more questions, there's one more thing I just thought of from the supply issue question, and you talked about payments. So one other thing that I would recommend to everyone, if you're building, make sure you have a payment clause after possession. I asked for that. I was told they don't do that. I found out one of my friends that was building in there had it in his contract. He does have it. He's very thankful because he's very not happy about how things have went. But the project manager just asked him for the final payment, which in his contract is 2 weeks after possession. His house isn't even finished. So they will keep asking you for money up front. And right now they built his deck completely wrong, not according to his plan. And they're saying they're not going to fix it. They also were supposed to put shutters on, they haven't done. So he's like, well, I still owe them 10 grand. I'm just not paying it. And if they're not going to fix those things, then I just will tell them they have to take it off the price. So definitely make sure you have a payment after possession, so you can check things and make sure they're working.
Yeah, so what Linda's talking about is, your payments are in draws when you're building new construction. Always make sure you leave at least 10, 15%, 20%. You want it to make it enough to where they're going to want to come and finish. So make it count. Don't, if it's a $300,000-$400,000 house, you don't want them to just have like a $2,000-$3,000 balance. You want it to be substantial, 15, 20, 30 grand. So definitely. So we thank you so much for listening. The next All Access Belize is January 4th. We'll probably do it at the same time. Not sure who the guests will be, but we'll put it out there. Again, for signing up, CaribbeanCapitalGroup.com/free webinar, All Access Belize. And what my friend, my Canadian friend, Victor Minaj says, if you enjoyed this podcast or this webinar, please go out and tell 2 friends about it. And Linda, we thank you so much for joining us today. We'll definitely have to have you on again. And everyone, just please reach out to her. Her websites, mbvtinyhomes.com and westedmontonrentals.com. And her email address is in there as well. If you have any questions or want to, a third-party consulting, with buying property in Belize, building in Belize, and check out her YouTube channel, on Linda Hayes on YouTube. So Linda, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you all for joining us. And sorry again for the technical difficulties we had today, but we thank you so much and see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.